All right, good afternoon, everyone. My clock says 1 o'clock, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us for this month's edition of the Everyday Environment webinar series. Today, we'll be discussing Protect Water Quality from the Comfort of Your Home. This webinar is being recorded. We ask that you please keep your video off and your microphone muted during the webinar. If you have a question, please type it into the chat box. Feel free to do that at any point throughout the webinar today. At the end, we will have an evaluation that we ask that you please complete. This helps us so much to figure out what kind of programming you'd like to see from us in the future. And we will drop a link to that evaluation into the chat at the end, and there will also be a QR code that you can scan. This webinar is a certified green event through the Institute for Sustainability, Energy, and Environment at University of Illinois. We recognize the importance of sustainability, and this new virtual world has made it possible for us to offer these webinars at a lower carbon footprint than our traditional programs. We encourage you to think about ways that you can be sustainable in your everyday life. Thank you to Angela Rouse and Aaron Garrett for setting up registration. Today, Amanda Christensen from Champaign County Extension is running tech for us. Thank you, Amanda. And we'll go to the next slide. All right, today's speakers all work for Illinois Extension and Illinois-Indiana Sea Grant. Eliana is a water quality specialist with 25 years of experience protecting natural resources. She works statewide, leading Extension's role facilitating and coordinating Illinois' nutrient loss reduction strategy, and serves as director for the Red Oak Rain Garden, a demonstration site on the University of Illinois campus. Kate is an outreach associate who focuses on the production of the Illinois Nutrient Loss Reduction Strategy Biennial Report and managing the 6 working groups. She earned a degree in environmental sustainability and is in the GEES MBA program. Allison works on projects that improve understanding of the Great Lakes and communicate issues threatening the health of freshwater ecosystems. She serves as the point person for Illinois-Indiana Sea Grant's Lawn to Lake program, informing communities about natural lawn care practices to cut back nutrient and chemical pollution and conserve water. So we're really happy to have you all here today, and I will pass it on to Eliana to get started.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. So I'm actually going to stop my video to save some bandwidth, but we all wanted to just say hello so you could actually see our smiling faces. There we go. Okay, so in addition to Extension and Illinois-Indiana Sea Grant, we want to acknowledge our nutrient loss reduction strategy partners, the Illinois EPA and the Illinois Department of Agriculture, and Lawn to Lake partner, Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. Now, here are the topics we'll cover today. We'll give you some background about nutrient issues, then we'll go right into actions that you can do, then we'll provide a resource to learn more.
Okay, so last year we actually did a webinar about the Illinois Nutrient Loss Reduction Strategy as a whole. And from the feedback we got on our evaluation survey, we found out that people wanted to know what they could do to help. And so that's what we're presenting today.
So we have a little video that we're going to show you. Bear with me while I get it up here.
Nutrient pollution is a widespread national problem and is well documented in places like the Chesapeake Bay, the Mississippi River Basin, and Puget Sound. Nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus are a natural part of the ecosystem. They support the growth of aquatic plants. But human activities cause an excess of nitrogen and phosphorus in the environment. Surface and groundwater becomes polluted, creating a serious problem known as nutrient pollution. Nutrient pollution can affect you and your family's health as it threatens our drinking water supplies and places where we like to swim and fish. Excess nutrients can also cause an explosion of algae growth called algal blooms. These can be foamy, scummy, or a thick mat of slime on the surface of the water or along the beach. Some algal blooms are harmful because they produce toxins that can make people sick. These blooms also hurt tourism, reduce property values, and drive up water treatment costs. The nutrients move downstream, killing fish and creating large dead zones where no aquatic life can survive. It's one of the most serious water pollution issues facing our nation. Nutrient pollution comes from farms, lawn fertilizer, pet waste, city streets, faulty septic systems, and sewage treatment plants. Limiting nutrient pollution from excess nitrogen and phosphorus will protect people's health, support the economy, and keep America's waters safe for swimming and fishing. Awareness is the first step in preventing and reducing nutrient pollution. Learn what you can do to make a difference at epa.gov/nutrient pollution.
I'm going to head back into our PowerPoint. Okay, so that's a really excellent short video from the US EPA, and I think it really does a great job of underlining how serious an issue that this is. But I also want to say that there are best management practices that can help. And to let you know that Illinois has a statewide effort based on this document that's shown here on the left that was written in 2015 that outlines a framework to reduce nutrients in Illinois lakes and rivers and waters leaving the state to reduce them by 45%. The implementation of this strategy is a multi-stakeholder coordinated effort that is led by the Illinois EPA, Illinois Department of Agriculture, and U of I Extension. Every 24 months, we work on a biennial report, and those are a couple of them that are shown in the middle and on the right. And as you can see, the last one was in 2019, and so that should let you know that we are working on one right now that will be coming out here in the latter part of 2021. So the strategy identified nutrient sources, which include point sources. Those are typically our wastewater treatment facilities, urban stormwater, and agriculture. Here on this slide, it shows what the strategy science assessment determined was the contributions, and determined that for nitrate nitrogen, agriculture contributes 80%. For phosphorus, it's closer to a 50-50 between agriculture and point sources. Now, agricultural commodity groups and water reclamation associations are part of that stakeholder group that I spoke about earlier, and they are working to reduce nutrient loss in Illinois. In Extension, we also have 2 watershed outreach associates, one of which welcomed you today, our host Jennifer Jones, and her colleague Rachel Curry. They are our boots on the ground that are mostly focusing on agriculture and also some stormwater. They happen to be giving the Everyday Environment August webinar that will be covering a suite of agricultural practices. So be sure to check that out, and we'll give you a link at the end of the webinar so to the entire series, so that you can make sure to register for all of our webinars coming up. But there, as I said, they'll be focusing on agricultural practices, but what about stormwater? So there's our urban stormwater there at the top. Stormwater makes up the rest of what we're looking at, and it looks kind of small, right? 2% and 4%. But I want to point out that it's really important to remember that the numbers that I'm showing you here, those are regarding waters leaving the state of Illinois. The strategy also has this goal of improving Illinois lakes and rivers within the state. And stormwater best management practices can have a direct effect on these waters. And these also happen to be the things that you and I can do at our own home. So it's kind of exciting. There is something that we can do, we can play a part in being the solution. Now, why might you want to do that? Well, as you can see, this is a very beautiful photo. This is at Mississippi State Park in Illinois. We want to keep our waters looking as good as what is shown in this photo. Furthermore, we want to have our waters be as clean as possible for our kids and grandkids, so the waters can be fishable and swimmable for generations to come. So let's get to it. Here's our actions, and here is what we are going to cover. We'll start with natural lawn care, which Allison Neubauer will talk about. So Allison, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Eliana. So as Eliana mentioned, an important thing that we all can do to keep our waters clean is be mindful of what we're doing at home. And so at Illinois Indiana Sea Grant and with our partners in Extension, we have a program called Lawn to Lake Midwest. And the goal of this program is to talk with homeowners and communities about how the actions we take on land, and specifically with our lawns, can ultimately have impacts on our water quality. So you may be doing things like adding fertilizer, which we know has nutrients in it that can run off into water bodies, as well as pesticides, and anything else that you're putting on your lawn ultimately should be tied into thinking about the watershed, the health of water bodies locally and downstream. And so we work to inform people, increase awareness about this connection, and then offer some more sustainable lawn and landscaping practices that folks can consider if they're interested. So the first thing we like to talk about is understanding what a watershed is. Now, most folks have heard of the term watershed, but it might not be as easy to define if you were asked. So we just like to sort of lay the groundwork and talk about that up front. So a watershed is the land that drains to a specific body of water. So imagine if there's a rainfall on your front yard, even though Illinois is pretty flat for the most part, there is a slope, and that water will run downhill and ultimately end up in a local creek, stream, pond, river, lake, etc. And so with these different sized water bodies, we have different sizes of watersheds. So you may be locally in a watershed that drains ultimately to the Mississippi River or into Lake Michigan. And that's why it's important for us to realize that, everyone that lives in a specific watershed is doing things to their lawns, their landscapes that is going to be aggregated in that body of water. So the nutrients, pesticides, what have you, those are all going to be picked up and carried to your water body. So important to realize our actions impact water quality where we live as well as downstream. Now, what is natural lawn care? When we say natural lawn care, what we're talking about is essentially you're trying to foster a healthy turf grass so that it will naturally be able to resist most weeds, disease, pests, as well as drought. And soil is really the foundation on which you have to grow a healthy lawn. So for natural lawn care, we talk about taking a soil test and understanding the conditions of your yard, your soil, and really working to be targeted if you need to apply any amendments, any extra nutrients, adjust pH, that sort of thing. You're first and foremost trying to do so naturally using natural or organic products just as needed. And this is really treating the underlying problem. So if you're seeing weeds or you're having problems with different insects and pests, that could be a symptom of an underlying problem that really should be addressed using a cultural practice or by fixing any issues with your soil. And by contrast, conventional lawn care is sort of a one-size-fits-all approach. And so that's where you might have a sprinkler system that's set up to run every day for 10 minutes. You may mow once a week just because that's when it fits into your schedule. And really, these things aren't taking into account the health of and the needs of your turf grass. And so where conventional lawn care is more product-based, you sort of do the run-of-the-mill things, and when a problem crops up, you go to the store and grab a product and hope it fixes it. Natural lawn care is more process-based. And so you're looking at the underlying problems and making sure that you're doing all you can to really have healthy turf grass to prevent those problems. And again, the conventional lawn care is treating the symptoms and giving a short-term fix rather than addressing the actual issues. And so we could talk about natural lawn care for a long time, but I thought today we maybe should just cover the basics. And we do have a website coming out that I will talk about at the end of my few slides here, where we have more in-depth information. We have the basics, which are the easier things you can do sort of to get started in natural lawn care. And then the section on the website called In the Weeds is where you can get more into the nitty gritty. If you're already doing these things, there's some extra steps you can take. So I'll run through these 7 steps pretty quickly, hopefully. So the first one of the easiest things you can do is mow high. And so what we're talking about is raising the blade on your mower so that you're cutting your grass to a height of 3 to 3.5 inches tall. And this is going to do a lot of really great things. First, when you have tall turf grass, you're shading out weeds. You're also shading the soil, so you're preventing the soil from drying out as quickly. And when you have taller shoots above ground, that means that your roots are going deeper below ground. And I'll talk about why that's important when we get to the water section. And you should also be sharpening your mower blade. If you have a sharp blade, you're going to get a clean cut, and that's going to minimize the stress on the turf grass. It's going to increase the time that it takes for the grass to heal after you've cut it. And a lot of times if you go by grass and it has sort of like a dull brownish tinge to it, if you look up close, the ends are actually frayed. And that's because a dull blade will, instead of cutting the grass, will actually kind of shred and tear it. And that's stressful for the plant. It's harder to heal. It loses moisture and is exposed to disease. The other recommendation is to cut only the top third at a time. Again, that's to minimize the stress on the turf grass, as well as, that's important for our next step, which is leaving the grass clippings. If you cut only a small amount, that's going to help those clippings filter down into the soil and decompose more readily. And leaving your grass clippings is an awesome way, a free way to add natural organic material and nitrogen to the soil. If you're leaving your grass clippings, you can replace 1 fertilization a year with the nutrients that you're returning and recycling through those clippings. Of course, importantly for water quality, we want to make sure that we're not leaving those grass clippings on any hard surfaces. So your sidewalks, your driveways, make sure you're sweeping those back onto the soil so it can be returned into the grass. And importantly, a lot of folks have this misconception that leaving your grass clippings causes thatch, which is that sort of buildup of organic material down near the crown of the plant, and that is not true. Actually, grass clippings can help because the decomposition brings these beneficial microbes that help break down thatch and organic material. The next step is water efficiently. And so first off, it's important to note that dormancy is a natural part of the life cycle of turf grass. So in the summer, if you choose not to water, your grass may turn brown, but that does not mean that it's dead. That is the dormancy period of grass, and it's still alive. It's just sort of reserving its energy, and when the rains return, it will green up again. And there's ways you can monitor that. And if it goes several weeks without any rain, you may want to add a little bit of water, but really minimize the amount you're adding and let the grass sort of just go through this dormancy period. If you do choose to water, you can add about 1 inch a week, but that's including rainfall. So I have a picture here at the top of a rain gauge. If you have one of those, that's a great way to track how much rain you're getting each week. And then if you choose to add additional water, you only need as much to get you to that 1 inch mark. When you're watering, you should do so deeply and infrequently. And what we mean by that, if you look at these photos here, this one on the left is that example I kind of mentioned earlier. If you have a watering system that's set to run for 10 minutes a day, that water is only going to penetrate to the shallow levels of the soil. And so that's where the roots are going to stay because that's where the water is. If you water once a week and add that 1 inch at a time, that water can really soak down into the soil profile, and you can see the roots then are going to go deeper, which is great because you can see if the sun is out, it's a hot day, hasn't rained for a while, the top levels of the soil are going to dry out first. And so those grass plants with shallow roots is going to wilt, whereas the one with the deeper roots can withstand that drought and that heat. It's also recommended to water in the morning to reduce the chance of evaporation and really be water wise. The next one is testing your soil. I already mentioned that soil care is the foundation of a healthy lawn. And so it's important to test your soil so that you know how you should be treating it to make sure you have the best environment for your turf grass. It's recommended to take a test about every 3 to 5 years. And Extension has a lot of really wonderful soil testing resources. And I have pictures here of 2 different videos. The first is how to take a soil sample, and the second is how to understand your soil test results. And we have links for those we can share in the chat if you're interested. And really, this is just sort of like as people, as humans, we go get checkups regularly to make sure that we're on top of any issues. And that way, you're not just treating symptoms when you get sick, but you're really getting at the root cause of the problem. Similar with soil, if you have a nutrient deficiency or problems with pH, that's going to affect every other aspect of your lawn care. So it's important to address that upfront and make sure that that's all in order and restore balance. Another tip is to fertilize in the fall. So you need to decide as a homeowner how much maintenance effort you want to put in, how high a quality of a lawn you want to have. If you want a really green, lush, perfect lawn, and you are able and willing to put in high maintenance and fertilize 4 times a year, that's sort of this right-hand column. But at a minimum, if you're lower medium maintenance and you're only gonna do minimal fertilization, we recommend focusing on the fall for cool season grasses. Using fewer lawn chemicals. So this is referring to pesticides, which means insecticides, herbicides, fungicides, any sort of problems that crop up in your lawn. There's these 4 steps that we recommend taking, and they're part of an integrated pest management approach, or IPM, as I'll call it for short. Essentially, the first step is to prevent it. And so by doing these sort of basic steps that we're talking about here today, you're creating this healthy lawn that will naturally resist pests. If you do have problems, it's important for you to sort of figure out your level of what you can take, what you can stand in regards to the pests. So you develop what's called an action threshold. When I reach this level of pests, this many dandelions in my lawn, etc., this is when I will intervene. So just sort of taking note and not necessarily worrying about it the second that a dandelion pops up, but really think critically about what can you stand and how much will you allow. When you get to the time where you want to start controlling the problem, I have on the next slide an IPM pyramid that talks about the different control methods. But then I do want to mention quickly before I dive into that this is an ongoing thing. There's no quick fixes in natural lawn care. So this is something that we should be evaluating and recording as time goes on. And that way you can sort of start to predict and understand what is causing problems in your yard and how to address them moving forward. So here is that integrated pest management pyramid. Essentially, we're starting at the bottom of the pyramid. These are like the first steps towards prevention. And that involves cultural controls, which we talked about with mowing and watering. Importantly here also is choosing the right plant for the right place, which is going to tie into what Eliana is talking about next with native plants. But essentially, you have to really assess your site and understand the conditions, the soil, the amount of sunlight, drainage, et cetera, and make sure that the plants that you're trying to grow are actually suited for that environment. Because if they're not, then you can put in as much time and effort, but you're really not going to have success. So start with these cultural controls, have a healthy stand-up turf grass. If you have problems, first sort of address it with mechanical, hand weeding, picking up any decaying plant matter that might be causing problems. And then you would move into biological control. So if the pest that you have, you look up the ways to treat it. There may be some natural or natural predators or parasites, pathogens that you can use. And I would recommend doing a lot of research and even reaching out to your county extension office if you want to kind of develop a plan of attack for that. And then finally, the top is chemical control. So as a last resort, we recommend turning to pesticides, and you should be focusing on the least toxic option available and make sure that you're spot treating using a minimal amount and reading the directions and being very cautious with whatever pesticide you choose to use if you do so. And then the last sort of 3-for-1 lawn care tip is to aerate, overseed, and top dress. And this is great because core aeration is going to remove plugs of soil, and that's going to reduce compaction, which is really causes a lot of problems in turf grass, especially some weeds favor compacted soils. So by aerating, you're going to be helping prevent weeds from cropping up. It controls thatch and also allows water to soak down deeper into the soil. Overseeding in the fall will also help increase the density of your turf grass, have a nice thick lawn that will shade out any weeds. And then top dressing with a thin layer of compost or mulch leaves, as Eliana will talk about, is going to increase soil organic matter, which is great because soil organic matter retains moisture really well, and it also has those beneficial microbes. So really just sort of this trifecta that will help give you a nice, healthy lawn. We do have some resources, and we have links to these publications that we can post in the chat box. On the left here is a guidebook. So this is sort of the full picture of natural lawn care, all of the details of that we have on the forthcoming website. And then on the right hand here, hot off the presses, we have some brochures on specific topics that were identified by homeowners in Illinois. We had a statewide survey that went out last year, and folks identified what topics they were most interested in and what kind of information they wanted. And so working with our watershed outreach associates, Jennifer and her colleague, we were able to put together these brochures on these specific topics. So those are available online as well as in print. If you, in most county extension offices across the state, we shipped out copies. So if you want a hard copy, there's a good chance that your county extension office might have these on file. And then finally, as promised, I wanted to do a plug for our upcoming website. It is going to be launched within, hopefully in a month. We're just finishing up our last reviews with expert reviewers, but lawn2lakemidwest.org is coming, and we have the basics, which I talked about today, the in the weeds for more information, as well as a bunch of information. We have monthly lawn tips if you want to come each month and check what you should be doing that month, as well as a full calendar if you want to plan ahead, resources that include videos, how to choose a lawn care service, etc. And then we also have some fun features and tools, the first of which is a natural lawn care quiz where you can sort of check off the boxes of what lawn care practices you're currently doing. And then it will spit out a number and tell you where you fall on the spectrum of natural lawn care beginner to natural lawn care master. And from there, it can send you off into the site to learn some new practices you might want to implement. We also have a soil testing labs map that we're going to be hosting on the website where you can sort of check what you want to be testing for, and it will spit out the labs that are available in your area, as well as a fertilizer calculator so you can put in the dimensions of your yard and your fertilizer makeup, and it will tell you how much to apply. And so with that, I am going to turn it over to Eliana, but I wanted to first leave you with the website, lawn2lakemidwest.org, as well as my email address. And if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with me. Thank you, Eliana. I think I will give up my control and hand it back to you.
Thank you, Allison. Okay, so let me get that control of this, and here we are. So our next few actions go beyond turf grass, and we're going to talk about how to make your landscape work for you with native plants. Now, NRCS defines native plants as plants that have developed over hundreds or thousands of years in a particular region or ecosystem. They help water quality by increasing the soil's ability to soak up rainwater where it falls. So, you know, like how Allison was talking about with turf grass, that there's ways of encouraging those roots to be longer. With native plants, the native plants just naturally have longer roots. So here's a comparison on this figure here that shows a typical fescue turf here. And then you can see that native plant roots, they can go down, you know, even as far as 14, 15 feet. So that's very helpful to be able to make the stormwater soak into that ground with much more power. Those long root structures are the key to it. And we really want to encourage you to consider replacing portions of your lawn with native plants. You can see the quote here from Professor Talamy that if half of American lawns were replaced with native plants, we'd create the equivalent of 20 million acre national park, 9 times bigger than Yellowstone, 100 times bigger than Shenandoah. And that's pretty amazing. So if all of us do it, I guess we would only have to convert half of our lawns, but there's some sort of math in there. I think the idea is that we as homeowners and residents and people that own a little patch of land working together can make a big impact. So how are you going to do that? We do have a series of brochures to help. These are on the Illinois Indiana Sea Grant resources page, and maybe somebody can uh, drop the link in there in the chat box. This is a general link that you would go to, and under our team, search for my name, and these and a few other products will show up. But I'm going to focus specifically on this middle one, the full sun pollinator garden. And there may be a direct link that will show up in the chat box to this one. So inside, you're going to find this sample planting plan, which was designed by our staff member, Lane Kanoki. And it really takes the guesswork out of how to put these native plants together in a beautiful way. It also shows, you can see my, my mouse moving here, a nice description of the plants, what conditions they need to be in, and some of the ecosystem that they're in, and some of the insects and birds that they attract. This picture series here shows the order of bloom, which is helpful. So you would know that within this planting plan that there would be continuous bloom. And that kind of leads us into what we have on this portion of the brochure that shows what things look like in spring, summer, fall, and winter. Lane's design ensures that there is interest year round. Our back page here has a few planting options, which is kind of that idea that if there are some people that might be willing to take out their entire lawn in one fell swoop. I don't happen to be one of those people. For me, it's much more doable, if a little bit more bite-sized, if I think about, well, maybe I could do this closer to the house one year, and then, or maybe closer to the sidewalk a different year. Now, if you do happen to have a whole lot of space, the plan can be repeated. And if you have a smaller space, here are some suggestions for putting a few native plants together as a nice combination. Next thing we're going to talk about is green infrastructure. Now, these are practices that capture rainfall and let it soak in where it falls. Now, that sounds a lot like native plants, right? And that's the idea. We are wanting to mimic the natural ecosystem of native plants. Sometimes there are areas where you couldn't have any plants at all. We'll talk about that here in a second. And but this green infrastructure can be at a scale that's very large, or it also can be at the residential homeowner scale. Stormwater at Home is a video series that talks about these green infrastructure practices at that scale. There are 6 episodes, including here, you can see an intro, and there's rain barrel. This is a rain garden. This is permeable pavement. This one does happen to have some plants that's within it, but permeable pavement can also just be pavement. But it is designed in such a way that allows the water to soak in instead of shedding off. This last picture here is a homeowner's green roof, and you can see that the episodes do go kind of in order of complexity, but it ends up here with this last episode showcasing some simple actions you could do. This is the link to the series, and maybe hopefully someone can drop that into the chat box for me. Now, on our next slide, I'm going to focus on one of these practices, which is a rain garden. Many of you have probably heard about rain gardens. They are becoming pretty popular. And this is our definition of a rain garden: the cultivated landscape, shallow basin. So here's that shallow basin. So the difference between just having a pollinator garden, which is a very good thing to have, but a rain garden strategically is capturing the rainwater. Sometimes it's from a downspout, sometimes from a parking lot. It's capturing it and allowing it to soak into the ground. It's just a little bit more targeted, a little bit more specific in that way. It does help help mitigate flooding and improve water quality, which is what we're talking about here. There are some other eco benefits of supporting pollinators, like because of the native plants, and also with our pollinator gardens and rain gardens. These gardens are helpful for human well-being. There's a few links that could also be dropped into the chat box. We work on a demonstration rain garden that is on the University of Illinois campus that I just want to mention because we have a lot of products and outreach that we do with this garden. This is the Red Oak Rain Garden, and this is a pretty large rain garden. This would be far larger than what somebody would do at their house, but there's a lot of lessons from this rain garden that can be applied to a smaller scale. And this is the website, the redoakraingarden.org. We are on all of the, or very many social media platforms. And we do have a newsletter that comes out. And if you want to subscribe to that, there is that link too. Finally, in terms of rain gardens, I do want to put a plug in for the Purdue Rainscaping course. This in this 2021 is our first year that Illinois Extension has imported this program, and we just had one of our first official trainings. It's 15 hours of training modules in a workshop setting. Currently, we're kind of having it as a hybrid, some on Zoom, some in person as the situations evolve. The course is really designed for master gardeners, master naturalists, and others with a baseline knowledge. So that is also a place where I can put a plug for the Master Gardener and Master Naturalist programs, which are just really wonderful programs that we have in the state of Illinois. So for the Rainscaping course, you'll just if there may be a few that are happening in the fall, and just keep your ear out from your local extension office for those. Finally, going to talk a bit about leaf management. So here in June, we don't really think, our minds are not really thinking so much about leaf management, but this is something for you to think about for this fall. Want to let you know that the USGS did a 5-year study to look at the largest source of municipal phosphorus, and it was leaves. Specifically, it was these leaves that are out on the street. In some municipalities, it's what is done to have leaves out on the street. And the problem with that is that you could very easily have a storm drain right on the street. And when it rains, it kind of forms a bit of a very phosphorus rich leaf tea. And that's going right into the storm drain, which goes right into our lakes and rivers untreated. So what do we do instead? So this is Brad on the street. We just talked about that. You know that one. Better would be if your municipality has pickup for bagged leaves. That is one way to work with the leaves instead of putting it out on the street. But best is picking up on some of the things that Allison was talking about with mulching in the leaves into the lawn. You also have this option of composting. Composting is a fantastic thing to do, and that could be top dressed on your lawn as well. There's one other option that I'll just mention because it's one that I personally do. In my backyard, I have a shade woodland garden, and I figure, in the natural ecosystem that they would have leaves falling on it. So I will put my my leaves over my my garden bed, and it is okay to do a combination of a number of these. This picture actually is my front yard, and so this portion here of the right of way, I like to have that very clean of leaves. So that would be what I would gather and put into my compost pile. On back, I might bag some of those. It could go back and forth, or I would mulch it in. But in that backyard, that is where, when I have some lawn, I would mulch it in. And as I've mentioned, either using it in compost or using it in my garden beds. And then I just want to put this one other mention, because I'm just talking a little bit about mowing and the storm drain. Just like I was saying with the leaves that are out on the street, the other thing that we really do not want to have out on the street is those lawn clippings. And like Allison said, it's going to serve much more of a good purpose if it's on the lawn. It's going to give you what the lawn needs. It's the whole idea is that that to remember is that our leaves and even the lawn clippings, they're really good for the soil. And always remember, our plants need the nutrients. It's the nutrient loss into the waters that we're really trying to prevent. So up here, okay, but over here in the street, not so good. Further, I'm just going to note that this situation I'm told is very dangerous for motorcycles, so not a nice thing to do. Okay, lastly, we'll talk a little bit about pet waste pickup. And wow, that's a cute puppy, right? He's so cute. Do right by him, be a good neighbor, and carry a doggy bag on your walks. Should be pretty obvious why you would want to do that. All right, so now I'm going to turn it over to Kate, who is going to talk about how you can learn more.
All right, thank you, Eliana. Okay, so in addition to our reports and webinars, we just released an online tool to let people explore this topic on their own. Land to Water Nutrient Explorer lets users sort through educational resources that were hand-selected by our team at Illinois Indiana Sea Grant. Many of these resources were developed by our partners working on the nutrient strategy specifically for teaching others about this topic. There are almost 150 resources, so we recommend using the filters to sort for what you're looking for. You can sort the results by audience, knowledge level, topic, learning mode, and the time required to complete. I'll give you all a quick demo on how to use this, but before we do that, in case you're interested, Illinois Indiana Sea Grant also has two other explorers for weather and climate and pollution prevention. They're also great resources, and they are all available on the Illinois Indiana Sea Grant website under the Education tab. You'll see there's the Nutrient Explorer, and then you have Weather and Climate and Pollution Prevention. They're all there on the site. All right, so now for the demo. And I'm going to share my screen. So you can see, you pull up to the site. Here you have these first four icons. You have this US EPA video that you watched earlier. This is our executive summary for our report from 2 years ago, and a podcast that our host, Jennifer, co-produces, and an interactive tool that lets you explore data related to the strategy and nutrient pollution. So, and we'll scroll down. You have all the filters here, and when you scroll down, you get all 148 resources. So that's a lot of resources to scroll through. So you probably want to use some of the filters. You can choose whatever you like. Simply click the filter to turn it on. And if you want to uncheck it, you just click again. You can select multiple in each topic or each category. And so let's give it a go. Say you want something for high school on agriculture. You get 41 results, and you can further narrow it down by the type of resource you're looking for. So if you want an activity or just something for your class to read, maybe you're looking for an expert to come and speak to your group. That's all here. You see activities, 16 activities here. And some of the resources have multiple icons associated with them. That just means that this could be suitable for all of these groups. And it covers, some of the resources cover more than one topic as well. So these are all external links. You just click on it and it'll open right up in a new tab. And so that makes it really easy to just go through and choose the resources you're interested in. There's lots of good educational resources on here. As I said, we went through a pretty long process going through and finding resources that we thought were good and we wanted to share with people. So yeah, we tried to make it as easy to use as possible, but if you do have any questions or suggestions on how to improve it, you just reach out to me. Here's my email. It's kgarden2@illinois.edu.
Thank you, Kate.
Yep.
Going to bring us back into here. One second. We are nearing the end, but like I said, that as you know, we work for Illinois Extension and Illinois Indiana Sea Grant. So that, since we work for an educational institution, let's see. Okay, I am not showing that I had the right thing showing up. Let's get to there. Aha, I'm giving you some homework. Here's the homework. First one, adopt 1 to 2 new lawn care practices. Second one, consider adding native plants to your landscape. We love native plants, and if you can, it's a great thing to do. Share this Nutrient Explorer tool that Kate just showed with teachers that you know, or your children's teachers. And then finally, this last one, we haven't talked about it because we thought if we gave you this website, you would spend most of the time just playing with the website because it's a really, really fun website. River Runner website allows you to find where you are, wherever you are in the US, and you can drop a raindrop, and then it will show you the path of that raindrop into the rivers and where the rivers go. So hopefully someone will have dropped that link to the into the chat box for people. It's really fun, and I'm not going to even tell you how much time I've already spent on that website. We do want to put a plug in for next month's Everyday Environment website, Woody Invasive Plants, July 8th with Chris Evans. It's one I'm definitely not going to miss. And I've also mentioned that in August, Jennifer Jones and Rachel Curry will be talking about edge of field practices. And there's our entire list of webinar topics are found at the Illinois Extension website. But right now for us, before we start our Q&A, we just want to thank everybody who was present here today listening to us. And if you are watching this on video, thank you so much. We ask that you complete this evaluation. Like Jennifer mentioned, it's really helpful for us to know, to get your feedback so that we can tailor these webinars to your needs. So, let me go over here and show you what these are too. If you want to learn more about the nutrient loss reduction strategy, here's one place to go. And then we want to put a plug in for that podcast that Jennifer and Rachel produce. Finally, these are some other social media links that you can find us at for Illinois and LRS, and you can find Allison and Sarah Zach at Great Lakes P2. Okay, so Jennifer, could you perhaps help us with moderating the chat box? Maybe, I don't know if we should stop share and I'll come back on so we can face the questions together?
Sure. Okay. So we did have a couple for Allison right off the bat. Allison, Barb asked, why fertilize in the fall? Wouldn't it be better in the spring to give it a full growing season to take hold? Oh, and you're muted, Allison.
Thank you for that. I did not realize. So for fertilization for cool season grasses, the reason we recommend fall is because that's going to help with summer recovery. It's going to help promote stronger roots. And so that's really good going into the winter to help the turf grass survive. Also, if you're looking to be sort of low environmental impact, if you're fertilizing in the spring, that's when the grass is going to be growing heavily already. So you're just going to be kind of promoting excessive growth, which will require excessive mowing. So if you're going to fertilize just once or twice, that's why we say focus on the fall fertilization. It really maximizes green color, and then we'll prepare the turf for winter without the growth surge.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. And then Matt asked, with the current drought, should we let our grass go dormant or water our grass each week?
So that again is a personal preference thing. If you want your grass to go dormant, if you want to maintain like turf grass during dormancy, you should be applying 1/4 to 1/2 inch every 2 to 4 weeks. So if you want to make sure that it's in dormancy but surviving, that's sort of the minimum amount that you should be applying to make sure that it survives a period of dormancy. But again, it's up to you if you are comfortable letting your grass go into that dormancy period. Then just sort of apply minimal water, 1/2 inch every 4 weeks sort of thing.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Eliana, we've got one for you. Walton asks, do you have a list of landscape companies that have experience putting in rain gardens in the Champaign-Urbana area?
No, but I wish I did. If any of all of you that are out there have any suggestions for Walton, please put them into the chat box.
Perfect. And then Susan asks, is there a native grass in Illinois that can pass for a regular lawn? Something mobile, but doesn't have to be super green and plush.
Yeah, that's a great question. In Pennsylvania sedge is one that I'm told that can do that can work really well with that. And Allison, I see maybe you're shaking your head yes on that as well. And it's a really beautiful plant. Thank you. Oh, you have Allison put into the chat box.
This one is actually preferred. There's some lawn alternatives with sedges listed.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Allison.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I was gonna say I'm not the expert on sedges. I'm sure Eliana and her team is more versed in the sedges, but there is some wonderful resources from Extension about turfgrass alternatives if you're looking for that, as well as if you want just sort of a low maintenance grass species. There are cultivars that are bred to be lower maintenance, low mow, no mow sorts of cultivar. So that's something to look for at your local nurseries.
Okay, great, thank you. And then this was more of a comment during your talk, Eliana, but Larry said we need someone to come up with a full shade rain garden. Do you have any plans for that?
It's in the works. Yeah, yes.
Awesome. Yes. Exciting, so we'll stay tuned for that.
Yes. For that comment, just so what could be helpful for right now, like I said, since those are in the works, if you go to the redoakraingarden.org website and you look for, if you're looking for a plant list of plants that could work well in a shade rain garden, there's a list of all of the plants that are in the garden. Look for the plants that are in cell 2 or cell 3. Cell 1 is our sunny cell, but cell 2 and 3 are under a sycamore and the red oak itself, respectively.
Okay, great. And so the next question probably could be answered by any of you. Christina had a couple of questions. She asked, is there a water testing resource available for well water? And does agriculture influence well water?
I believe that the Illinois State Water Survey has a testing service, or at least they have in the past. And that's something that we can put in the follow-up email that Amanda just mentioned will be coming that has all of these links. And Jennifer, you may be best qualified to speak to the second part of the question.
Sure. Yeah, really quickly, I can just say agriculture can influence well water for sure. If we have excess amounts of nitrogen entering the well, that can be one concern. And I would also say you might check with your local health department. Sometimes they have water testing as well, especially for wells and drinking water. So that's another good resource.
Oh, well, Kelly just dropped the link in the chat box for the water surveys, water quality analysis. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right, we have another question. Can you recommend native plant ground covers for a slope?
That is a really great question. So I'm trying to think in the Red Oak Rain Garden on our slopes, what ground covers that we have through there. I believe that there's a geranium that's growing on the slopes and some of our sedges. I'm trying to remember if the pin sedge would be a good selection for that. It may like it a little bit more dry, but there are several sedges, and we can put that in the follow-up email as well.
Okay, perfect. And so far, I think we just have one more question that I see. And this maybe some of the other listeners can post in the chat box as well. But Carmen asks, does anyone know of an upcoming native plant sale that would have native water retention plants? So I'm not sure.
A lot of the really good native plant sales happen in the spring, and I would encourage you to go to the Illinois Native Plant Society to see. They usually have a list of those sales coming up. That's a great place to find that. They are also becoming a lot more available in local nurseries, especially in the northern portion of the state. So you may want to check with some of those too.
Okay, great. And I'm not seeing any other questions at the moment. So I guess we'll just go ahead and say thank you again to Eliana and Allison and Kate for presenting. And thank you all so much for joining us today. Please complete the evaluation if you have time. And we hope you'll join us next month for the Woody Invasives Everyday Environment webinar. Thank you.